Welcome to Bonnie's Beat. I'm your host, Bonnie Squires. We're coming to you from Radnor Studio 21 in beautiful downtown Wayne. We like to showcase people who are doing important things for our community, whether it's along the main line or in the greater Delaware Valley. And today we have two people who are volunteering their professional expertise for the sake of the Ardmore Library, which I don't know how old it is, we'll find out shortly. And our guests today are Judy Yellin, to my immediate left, and Karen Cosentino. Karen is the president of the Board of Trustees of the Ardmore Library, and Judy is a trustee and very professional. Expertise is her middle name, I think, and she took on the job of chairing the capital campaign for the Ardmore Library. How old is the library building? Does anybody know?
It's about 100 years old.
About 100 years old. Is it certified historic by the Township Board of Commissioners?
Yes, it is.
So in order to do anything to it, you have to get permission.
Correct.
I know what that's like because I live in a historically certified section of Lower Merion Township, and you can't do anything until you get permission from the commissioners. But it's worth it because it preserves something. So the Ardmore Library is on Ardmore Avenue, strangely enough, right? And it's a very old town, Ardmore. I love to see those old photographs where they had the train factory and I forget what it was called initially, Ardmore. It was called something else initially. But, okay.
We actually, the Ardmore Library was started by a group of civic-minded women, I'm proud to say, with $6 in the treasury and 300 books.
$6 in the treasury. 100 years ago, I guess that was enough to start something.
Right.
Yeah, I guess
Today, you could get like a half a gallon of gas, I guess, for $6 what you could get.
So they believe that, public education should be available to all, and the library should be available to all. And eventually from that, a building was built. They rented space originally, but eventually the Ardmore Library was built, and now it's about 100 years old.
Currently, it's closed, correct?
Correct. We closed in January of 2015.
Because it's under construction. Have they started the construction already?
Yes, absolutely. It is fenced, and the entire interior has been gutted. The interior elevator has been removed, and that's about where they are right now.
Okay, Judy was telling me earlier today that there was an elevator that was like right in the middle of the library that took up so much space. So you got permission to move it to the outside of the building.
Correct. So it's now on the outside of the building and hits on an exterior wall, and so we can use all of the space on the interior to increase our square footage and really repurpose our space so that it can be used more efficiently.
With 2008 and the downturn in the economy, there were a lot of cuts that were made everywhere. And fortunately, Lower Merion wasn't one of those townships that cut librarians or cut money for, I don't think they did anyway. The schools have libraries, correct?
Correct.
And Judy, as somebody with a degree in library science, right? And spent some time as a librarian at one point in your professional life.
Right. Well, libraries, had to make, across the country, had to make some staffing cuts across the board. Most libraries did. But the Ardmore Library serves a very particular community, and it's a very important catchment area for the library because although Lower Merion is considered to be, a fairly affluent community, the Ardmore Library service area, there's a lot of people who are in the service industry, and it's not the most wealthy community in Lower Merion. And these are the people who may or may not have computers at home or the funds to pay for databases to look up information. And they need the library to access those computers. And they need the library. The Ardmore Library is the only library of the 6 libraries in Lower Merion that provides GED and ESL tutoring and testing.
English as a second language, and the GED is in place of a high school diploma.
Yes.
And you can't go anywhere, do anything, be employed without at least a minimum of a high school diploma.
Exactly.
So that's very important. That's the only library.
It's the only of the library of among the 6 in Lower Merion that provides this service. And also, and I tutored when I first moved here 7 years ago. I tutored through RSVP, which is Retired Senior Volunteer Program, and I tutored at the Ardmore Library because of the access to all the reference materials that I would need, the idiom dictionary and the jargon dictionary. And when you're trying to teach someone English conversation, you know, you want to teach them the way people are actually speaking, not just out of a book.
So you were a volunteer tutor?
I was a volunteer tutor. Mm-hmm.
But you have a very interesting background in your professional life. So tell us some of the interesting assignments you had, Judy.
Oh, well, I was, as I say, a librarian for 17 years, working in art libraries and art museums. And then I decided to get out in the community more in terms of agencies that help families and children. And so I went to the Jewish Federation of Minneapolis.
That's where you were living at the time?
That's where I was living, and I directed the Russian Resettlement Program.
Oh.
And
I was a volunteer tutor when I lived in Harrisburg for 3 years. I had a job that took me to Harrisburg. I got involved with the Jewish community there, and I was the volunteer tutor for a Russian family to teach the husband enough English that he could get hired with his background.
Exactly. So that's one of the programs that came under my direction. And we worked with 7 different agencies within the Minneapolis area, and I coordinated them. And we took about 450 to 500 refugees a year, which is a lot for a small community like Minneapolis, for 7 years. So it was quite a big program. And then I went to their foundation and directed their foundation for almost 3 years.
That means she was busy raising money.
Raising money. And that's how I really got into fundraising. And then I went to Family and Children's Service, and I raised money for them. And then I was an independent fundraising consultant. And then I moved here, and now I'm doing everything for free. Pro bono.
Pro bono.
And the Ardmore Library is very fortunate.
Yes. Well, Karen, how did you get involved with the Ardmore Library?
Oh, well, when my children were younger, I did a lot of volunteering in the schools and doing the things that they like to do, and volunteering in the Interschool Council in Lower Merion School District. And then eventually, as I got older, I decided to broaden my scope, and we had spent many wonderful hours at the library, my children and I reading books and taking out books and going to story hours, and so the library was someplace I really wanted to devote my time to.
With a name like Cosentino, I don't think you're involved with the Jewish Family Service.
That is correct.
Okay. But what kind of volunteer work have you done in addition to the Ardmore Free Library?
Oh, in addition to what I've done at the schools, like I said, the Interschool Council, I'm also involved with Impact 100. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Impact.
And one of my friend's daughters, the Margels, I forget her, never remember Tracy's married name. But anyway, she was one of the young women who started that, that program.
It's a great program.
Amazing.
Yep.
I don't know if you're familiar with Impact 100.
Not.
Well, you can tell her about it.
It's basically group giving, and we're able to award $100,000 grants. We review grant proposals, and in fact, tonight, that's where I'm going tonight, is the annual meeting where we will disperse or name our winners.
They reach out to other committed women in the community, and each one plunks down $1,000 each year, and they put together a big pot of money, and then they send out grant requests, and they pick such a wide variety of things. There was a tree planting agency in Camden one year.
Right, their focus areas. One is environment, which is you're speaking of.
Yeah.
Education and family services.
Terrific.
Right.
So, Lower Merion Township has said it's going to cost $2.4 million to make all the renovations and the upgrades and improvements in the Ardmore Free Library. But then they charged the Board of Trustees with raising $200,000, which is a lot of money. It really is. But Judy, tell us how much you've already raised, which is a good start.
Well, we've raised about 40% so far, which is about 82,000, a little more than 82,000. And the whole purpose of this is the Township Board of Commissioners wanted to see that the community that surrounds and uses the library is invested in it as well, financially, and that's why we are raising this money, and so we're here today to talk about it.
Now tell us about some of the upgrades that are going to be made with the Ardmore Library.
Well, Karen knows those
Sure.
intimately.
Well, first is the ADA compliant elevator, which is something we did have a lift.
ADA, Americans with
Disabilities
Act.
Right. So the elevator,
Which just had its, I think its 30th anniversary. There was a whole big deal about the ADA. Yeah, a lot of recognition because sometimes with such a, I know I went to study it when I was working at Temple University. I was very interested in the ADA, and I went to Washington and took some training. And sometimes it's just a question of lowering the drinking fountain in the hall so that somebody in a wheelchair can reach it. I mean, that it's not a major investment. Now, there are other things, like you'll have to have a ramp for wheelchairs and people in walkers to get into the building, right?
we did have a ramp, and so that will be maintained.
Good.
But this elevator will give us the ADA compliance.
Good.
And it also will provide access to all 3 levels of the library, which we did not have before, which allows us to open up our loft, which is our upper level, to give patron access. And that will become a quiet reading room. Also, we are, because the elevator has been moved to the exterior side of the building, we're able to enlarge our children's room on our lower level and include a new soft seating area for reading story hour, and also for parents to sit comfortably with their children and read, and just to make it more comfortable for our patrons. In addition, we will have a new circulation desk, which will have a permanent self-checkout station, making it easier and more efficient for our patrons to check out.
What about computers? How many computers will you be able to install once the library is renovated?
We are, at this point in time, maintaining the number of stations that we had before, which was 6 stations for public use. If we can in the future, this technology is not included in the renovation budget. The renovation is purely the physical aspects of the building, not improved technology. But as a board, we are committed to improving our access, our technology. Last year we had 9,000 internet sessions for
9,000?
patrons.
Woo! Oh,
So
Judy,
they are busy all of the time.
you keep some of the material you showed me, and this is, by the way, this is a gorgeous pamphlet about the library. I just love it, and especially the reading hour with the with the kids.
Right.
You know, terrific. But there somewhere, here it is.
We have
The
some
cheat
yeah.
sheet. Okay, the 2014 usage statistics by actual count. 67,831 people came through your turnstile.
Yes.
That's an awful lot of traffic. Oh my goodness. And 9,000, was that the internet wireless? 9,000
Sessions, right.
sessions?
Sessions.
That's a lot of people
Yes.
doing important work. We assume they weren't all playing Donkey
No,
Kong.
right.
Whatever the games are these days.
Yep,
you
no,
know.
I think many people are searching for jobs and just using it's
The
free
research.
technology and free internet. So
Now, my late friend Charlotte Simon is memorialized every year. Tell us about the Charlotte Simon Poetry Contest.
Well, this was started 10
this was
years
just
ago?
our 10th anniversary
10
year.
years ago. And it's funded by the Miller family in memory and in honor of Charlotte Simon Miller.
It was Charlotte Miller Simon.
Charlotte Miller Simon. Thank you.
Her-
See, you should
Her
be.
first late
No, you
husband
did.
was Miller.
Yes.
And then because one of her sons is my primary physician at Penn Radnor,
Okay.
Dr. Matt Miller. And he has two brothers, and they're involved too, but their name is Miller. Her name, her second husband, she was married to a long time to the second husband after she was widowed, and that was Sam Simon.
Okay.
So that's how you got Charlotte Miller Simon.
Thank you for correcting me. And there were, this year, it was the first year, I believe, that it was entirely an online poetry.
Second year.
Second year. And maybe you should talk about
No,
it since
you're
you know
Okay,
more.
tell me how many entries you had in the poetry
this year there
contest.
were 453 entries from all over Pennsylvania and even as far as other states, and I believe there was even one from Romania. It was a wonderful celebration we had where the winners all came to the Lower Merion Township building this year and read their poems, and it was a very moving celebration.
Well, Charlotte was a very talented person. She was, even though she was my mother's age, she was one of my dearest friends.
Oh, I didn't
And
know that.
decades ago, I gathered Charlotte and two other poet friends and started a women's poetry group, and we taped a show for WHYY television. And Charlotte and I were involved in in an organization together, and even though she was, I would characterize her today as a conservative Republican, and I'm a flaming liberal Democrat. Often the two of us stood alone at national conventions, and we were against everybody else. But the two of us, there were a lot of issues that we agreed on, and I just loved her. She was a remarkable woman, and I was thrilled that her kids decided that one of her major loves was poetry, to institute this poetry contest. And I've been to a few of the award
celebrations,
ceremonies,
nice.
and it's really terrific. And the kids the younger ones who win, they like levitate when they go up to get their awards. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of the literacy activities that we provide, and Karen can tell you about the others.
Well, we talked a little
the
bit
book
about
club,
the
the Wednesday book club.
Right.
What's
For
the Wednesday
adults.
book club?
Meeting one Wednesday every
Yes.
month, book club meeting for adults.
And I think there are around 35, 40 people who belong and come faithfully.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, I was just talking the other day to someone who's been a member for a while. In fact, she was one of the founders. And she told me that at one point they wanted to discontinue it for the summer, but everybody protested. They wanted to keep going. So now they meet 12, once a month, 12 months a year. So
Oh, that's fantastic.
So-
Who is the leader?
Ruth Berman is the leader of
Berman,
the book club,
yes.
and she actually has been on the board in the past and runs the book club.
What are the responsibilities of board members or trustees, as you call them, Karen?
The major responsibility is fundraising, of course, but we are a working board, and we work for every penny that we raise. We run our annual kitchen tour, which is our largest fundraiser.
And talk about the kitchen tour, because when I see those signs go up all over the township,
Yes.
it's fascinating.
Yes, and the trustees post those signs also. This is our 10th year for the kitchen tour, and it's every year the last weekend in April. And we usually show between 7 and 9 kitchens.
People volunteer
People
to let
volunteer.
strangers come
They
into their homes.
so generously allow us to show their kitchens. And
Brave.
They are. But we have lovely crowds. Our guests are lovely, and many of them are looking to do their own renovation. So they look forward to coming and seeing what other people have done. We have contractors in the kitchen who've worked on the kitchens, and so they enjoy speaking with those contractors to learn about different techniques and different products. And we.
Does anybody cook in those kitchens?
I was going to say we do tastings in the kitchens,
Oh.
usually 4 or 5. This year we had 5 tastings. We had A la Maison did a tasting in one of the kitchens with some wonderful food. De Bruno Brothers is a great sponsor, Viking Pastries. So we have great support in the community for that, and people are full by the time they're done with the tour.
How much did you raise this year? Are you allowed to say?
Sure. It was about It was over $19,000 after expenses.
That's
yeah.
fantastic.
It is great.
$19,000. Woo. How many people bought tickets for the kitchen tour?
We are about 200 this year, and 250 probably took the tour.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
250.
It's,
Well, when do you think the renovations will be completed so that you can welcome people to the library? And I assume you're going to have some kind of big event to celebrate the reopening, right?
well, the middle of November.
This year?
Yes, middle of November this year, and we are on track for that right now. In fact, I hate to say it, but I think they're a few weeks ahead of schedule. I hope I don't jinx that. So we're really excited, and we know our patrons are really excited for the library to reopen because many of them walk to the library, and it's a little bit of a hardship to have to go to the other libraries for this community sometimes. So
The ABC House, I think, is right across the street from the library.
The
Used to
Palmer,
be.
Palm Court. Is that what you're thinking?
No, the ABC House was where kids, at-risk youth from other states and cities are sent to live there, and they attend Lower Merion. They may also go to Harriton, I'm not sure, but I know about Lower Merion for the year, and it just gives them a step up that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And I would assume that they would be involved in doing research at the Ardmore Library for all of their lessons as well.
sure, absolutely.
We get a lot of kids from after school to do research when school is closed and they need to work on reports and so forth. A lot of kids come in afterwards, and the new renovations will have a, I understand, pretty small, but there, a teen area for teens to come and sit and read and do their work. So that'll be really nice, too.
The reason that Ardmore didn't get renovated earlier is because when the commissioners put together a wonderful master plan for renovating, upgrading all of the libraries, the first two ate up a lot of the funds, especially Ludington. But I have to say the Ludington Library is phenomenal. It really is. And some of the things you're mentioning already exist at the Luding Library with the teen lounge, with the expanded children's thing, with the computers, you know, whatever. But you're going to, finally your number came up, right?
Exactly. And also originally, Ardmore and Gladwin were to go at the same time because they were both buildings that needed new elevators. But then different issues at the different libraries switched the order around, and so now Ardmore and Penwyn are being renovated simultaneously, and Gladwin will be next. So.
Gladwin will be next. Okay. Now, did you have a library science degree?
I do
Karen,
not.
where did you go to school?
No. I went undergrad to Amherst College in Massachusetts, and I have my master's in business administration from University of Michigan.
From University of Michigan. Did you know each other when you were
No, I was in Minnesota. I stayed over.
straight over? Well, a faraway place that begins with an
Both
M.
begins with M. Yeah.
Right. And what did you do with your MBA degree?
I worked for Stroh's Brewery for a number of years after I graduated from business school in Detroit.
STROH, right?
Correct.
Oh, I've heard of them. I don't drink.
I have many brands. Actually, they were a privately owned company, but the family owned the company, but they don't exist independently any longer. The brands are owned by other beer companies.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school in Connecticut, in Farmington, Connecticut.
So how did you end up in this neighborhood?
I ended up in this neighborhood because my husband and I relocated for his job. So,
And his job was what?
my husband works for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Works for the Eagles?
Yes,
What does he do for
does.
the Eagles?
He is the president of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Forgive me, but I don't know the...
No, he has a different last name than I do.
What's his name?
His name is Don Smolensky.
Oh, okay. I was the first one that, when Norman Brayman owned the Eagles years ago, I was the first one, was working at Temple University as a special assistant to the president. I was the first one that discovered that Brayman was a Temple alum, and he was based in Miami, so I had somebody from the Miami Herald interview him. I was also, in my spare time, quote unquote, as the president then said, I was editing the alumni magazine. So I had somebody interview him for an article. Then when he came to to see the team, I set up a photo session and put Norman Brayman's picture on the front cover of the Temple Review, holding, a temple, not an Eagles, but a temple sweatshirt. And he was written up recently, but now the New York Times refers to him as a billionaire, not a millionaire, a billionaire with a B, but talked about how he has been funding Mario Rubio's political campaigns for decades now. But that's for another
topic.
So, Judy, you are dedicating yourself. This is a tough assignment to raise $200,000 for a library.
Well, my background, I'm still a librarian at heart, even though I haven't done it for quite a few years. And I have children of my own, and I have grandchildren of my own. And I really believe, and a lot of the work I've done has been with family serving agencies, and I really think that access to education and libraries is one of the most important things you can do for a community. Because without a good education, without access to knowledge, you end up with a very isolated group of people who just cannot rise and become really take civic responsibility themselves. So I think it's one of the most important things that happens is having a free library. Free libraries, I believe, were started by Benjamin Franklin.
He started everything.
Because before then, libraries were by subscription. You had to pay to borrow books. And Benjamin Franklin, who I think, somebody is probably going to call in and correct me, but I think he thought very forward-looking that knowledge belonged to everyone. And the library, a lot of what's being done in the library is to provide access for people who didn't have access before. People who have wheelchairs or moms with strollers will now be able to get to the children's area safely.
Terrific.
The elevator before apparently was a double-door elevator where you had to push one door aside and then another accordion kind of door and then go in, but if you were in a wheelchair there was no room to turn around, so you had to back out and somehow manipulate those doors. So this elevator will really allow access for the handicapped, people in wheelchairs or with walkers, and especially women with strollers who are maybe holding a toddler in one hand and a stroller in another.
Or a diaper bag in one hand.
Or a diaper bag. And so access and availability is really important.
I've been to some school libraries. They call it a library, and they've got all these contraptions where it's all computerized and there are no books. And to me, it can't be a library if it doesn't have books. There's nothing like sitting down with a book. I refuse to buy a Kindle. That's not, you have to turn the pages. Now I do read some newspapers, out-of-town newspapers, online, but I have to have a printed newspaper in my hand every morning to start the day. So do you feel the same way, Karen?
I read paper books, I do, but I appreciate the resources that we have online. That as a library card holder, I can go on the website and I can take out a magazine without physically taking it out, and I can read a magazine online just with my as a card holder, and all of the other resources that are available from my own home that doesn't even require me to go to the library.
Now, let's put up the website again for the Ardmore Library. It's Ardmore Free Library at yahoo.com. That's not the website.
No, so
that's
the website
email.
is lmls.org, which is Lower Merion Library System.org. So lmls.org is the township's website.
lmls.org.
Correct. And this is our email. Should you have any questions about the capital campaign?
Okay, or if you want to donate.
If you want to donate,
to
please.
donate.
The library website, the township website, has a button where you can go to the foundation and donate to the capital campaign and indicate Ardmore as the library you would like to donate to.
Terrific. And you'll take donations 24/7, right?
Yes,
the
we will.
website, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we accept the old-fashioned check also, of course.
Wonderful. And they can mail it to, the address of the library is
It goes
Well-
to the Lower Marion Library Foundation, and the address
It says
is
75 East Lancaster
Avenue.
Avenue.
That's where the
in Ardmore,
foundation,
right.
Is that the township building?
Yes, that's a
75?
township building,
Okay.
19003.
Right.
Okay. Well, our guests today have been Judy Yellin and Karen Cosentino, and the Ardmore Library is in very good hands. So thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
us.